One of the most urgent tasks for our country is to decisively defeat the climate hysteria hoax.
We are in the beginning of a mass extinction.
The ability of CO2 to do the heavy work of creating a climate catastrophe is almost nil at this point.
The price of oil has been artificially elevated to the point of insanity.
That's not how you power a modern industrial system.
The ultimate goal of this renewable energy, plan is to reach the exact same point that we're at now.
You know who's tried that? Germany. 7 straight days of no wind for Germany. Their factories are shutting down.
They really do act like weather didn't happen prior to 1910.
Today is Friday.
That's right, Greta. It is Friday. It's the Friday of one of the best weeks ever for climate realism. And it's also a great week because this is a good Friday, I should say, because this is the day the Heartland Institute broadcasts the Climate Realism Show. My name is Jim Lakely. I am Executive Vice President of the Heartland Institute and your host. The Heartland Institute, we're an organization that has been around for 42 years. We're known as the leading global think tank pushing back on climate alarmism. Heartland and this show bringing the data, the science, the truth to counter the climate alarmist narrative you've been fed every single day of your life. There is nothing else quite like the Climate Realism Show streaming anywhere. So I hope you will bring friends to view this live stream every Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. And also like, share, and subscribe. And be sure to leave your comments underneath the video. These all convince YouTube's very mysterious algorithm to smile upon this program. And that gets it in front of even more people. And as a reminder, because big tech and the legacy media do not really approve of the way we cover climate and energy on this program, Heartland's YouTube channel has been demonetized. So if you want to support this program, and I really hope you do, please visit heartland.org/TCRS. That's heartland.org/TCRS. And you can join other friends of this program who support it to bring it to the world every single week. And we also want to thank our streaming partners, junkscience.com, CFACT, What's Up With That, the CO2 Coalition, and Heartland UK Europe. Oh boy, do we have a big show today with some fantastic news. So let's get started. We have with us, as usual, Anthony Watts. He's Senior Fellow at the Heartland Institute and publisher of the world's most viewed website on climate change, What's Up With That? Linnea Lukin, Research Fellow for Energy Environment Policy at Heartland. And we are so we're so happy to welcome back special guest Lois Perry. She's the director of Heartland UK Europe. And that organization and Lois are on the vanguard of convincing people and the government of Great Britain to give up the nonsensical net zero goal. She's doing amazing work. Welcome, Lois. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Before we get into the show, I just want to remind everybody that we have a climate conference coming, the 16th International Conference on Climate Change. The theme, which we picked out months ago, is really apropos today. Climate realism is rising, and it's April 8th and 9th, 2026 at the Hotel Washington in Washington, D.C. You can get your tickets. Space is limited. I must tell you, space is limited. So go today. Go to heartland.org. You'll see a feature on the front page where you can click on that and get your tickets. Get them today. And it's going to be fantastic. We have some fantastic speakers, including Linnea and Lois and Anthony Watts. So if it's been your dream to meet in person the people on this show, our climate conference is the place to be in April 8th and 9th in Washington, D.C. All right. Now, with that and with a big show ahead of us, let's get into it with the crazy climate news of the week. Yes, thank you very much, Bill Nye. I don't know what I enjoy about that drop more, the foolishness of Bill Nye or that funny music that we put to it. All right. Let's go. Our first item here is this comes from Eurobarometer, and it seems that Europe's climate panic has taken quite the dip. There was Bjorn Lornborg, who we like well enough, shared a tweet that showed this in graphic form. But the Eurobarometer, that's an official poll from the EU. And since August of 2010, they have asked, quote, what do you think are the two most important issues facing the EU at the moment? And you can only pick two answers when they ask you that. And in the early years of the poll, the top two issues were by far the economic situation and the state of member states' public finances. And then immigration became one of the top two for a few years in the middle 20 teens. But then in 2019, climate took the number one spot, but it's been all downhill ever since. Today, in the Eurobarometer poll, the top two issues are the war in Ukraine, and once again, immigration is high on that list. And I don't think climate is going to be ticking back up anytime soon. You can see from the graphic on screen that it looks like it's a permanent spiral downward. So, first of all, Lois, the director of Heartland UK Europe, congratulations. And two, why do you think this topic has faded in the minds of Europeans as one of the most important issues?
Well, I think number one, I'm not sure that I can take all of the credit, but thank you very much. I do love compliments, so I will take that one actually. But I think basically you've got a situation where look, you guys having Trump in the White House has changed everything. It really has. Suddenly you've got the most powerful man in the world just openly calling the whole thing a hoax, the whole climate change thing a hoax. Drill, baby, drill. People are seeing in America the impact of what goes on, what happens when you reduce the cost of energy and you become energy sufficient. And they want a little bit of that. And the other thing as well, without wishing to put too fine a point on it, there are so many other pressing issues. When people are going out into the streets and they're seeing additional violence, crime going through the roof, and people, other things take priority. I mean, for example, in London at the moment, violent crime and shoplifting and all sorts of different crimes, sexual attacks in particular, are so off the Richter scale that people worrying about what may or may not happen to the planet in 50 years, whether they think it, they believe in it or not, is not going to be a number one priority. I'm not surprised immigration is so high, and I'm not surprised that concerns about expensive wars or wars where your sons and daughters might be drafted into that you don't believe in, and even if you do believe in it, you don't want your kids to be drafted into it. I'm not surprised that climate change has slipped down. Also, hopefully, the good work that we're doing is making an impact. I know it is in the UK. I know from the CPACs that we've been to in Poland and Hungary that the work that the Heartland Europe is doing is making a big impact as well. So yeah, let's take some of the credit at least, eh?
Yeah, well, I mean, go ahead, Anthony. Sorry.
Yeah, I was just thinking, what a mess that the left has created in the UK. I mean, their policies on immigration, well, everybody's come on in, it's just destroying not just the UK, but many of the EU countries. They're letting this immigration take over their national identity. And so as a result, you have rising crime and fear. And, climate change doesn't even score a blip in the mind of a lot of people these days.
And resentment.
Worried about going out on the street.
And resentment. Huge resentment, and unfortunately, just very quickly, just make one little point. What I've noticed from my because I've got my stepfather is Jamaican and my sister's a mixed race. What's happening is that indigenous British-born black people and mixed race people are experiencing racism, sometimes for the first time, because of the resentment that's being caused by illegal people coming in and being seen to be being treated better and have and being here completely illegally and causing issues and problems and crime. So my half brothers and my half sisters have experienced. My little sister Tanya had a bottle thrown at her the other day. She has never, ever experienced any kind of prejudice. Well, maybe very slightly when she was very little, but it's because people are angry about the uncontrolled immigration. I'm absolutely convinced of it.
Yeah, it's so to the audience, real quick here, just to explain why we have a little bit of a pause between conversations as we're going along. Andy is out, as you can see. The Bishop of Ranterbury is out.
By
Sterling.
the way, at the upcoming ICC 16, we're going to have a Bishop of Ranterbury statue in the lobby, and you can press a button, and he'll create a rant for you.
Yeah, yeah, we're gonna have cardboard cutouts of Sterling in the lobby. But the yeah, so we're running the show in the background at the same time as hosting and having conversations. So it's a little bit tricky today, but thank you guys for sticking with us. And I just wanted to give a little bit of an explanation because we're having a little bit more like pauses than we usually do.
Yeah, we're doing our best. We're doing our best to try to produce and host at the same time. So all errors are mine, and all good things are Linnea is responsible. All right. Well, let's get into our second item, and it is titled "The Issue with Tissue." Now, this comes from our friends. I say that sarcastically, of course, from the Natural Resources Defense Council, and they actually have put out a report called "The Issue with Tissue" for several years. So, to hell with your nose and your bum as well, I guess. The NRDC thinks we just have it too good, and the cost is the forest, apparently. So, let me read a little bit from this. It says, since 2019, NRDC's "The Issue with Tissue" series has exposed how America's largest tissue manufacturers are failing the climate, communities, and biodiversity by creating single-use, throwaway products from forests like the Canadian Boreal. Now, I like toilet paper being single-use, but your mileage there. They write, these annual scorecards grade major toilet paper, paper towel, and facial issue brands based on their sustainability and provide consumers with a powerful tool for selecting eco-friendly options, such as products made from recycled content and responsibly sourced bamboo. Despite progress and the dozens of smaller companies embracing alternatives to the tree-to-toilet pipeline, many of the most popular U.S. tissue brands continue to drive devastating impacts to forests. For the first time, Procter & Gamble breaks out of the F-grade category with its Charmin Ultra Bamboo toilet paper landing a B score. While this product is a step in the right direction, P&G's flagship tissue brands, including Bounty, Charmin, and Puffs, continue to receive F grades for relying almost exclusively on forest fiber. Now, Linnea, I don't think most consumers really care where their tissues and toilet paper comes from, as long as it's, let's just say comfortable, if not luxurious. And they probably care less about the tree-to-toilet pipeline than NRDC does, because trees are a renewable resource.
Yeah,
wouldn't tissues and toilet paper be among the last products made out of a tree that is cut down, actually?
Yeah, thanks for going to me on this, Jim. This but yeah, boy, where to begin? Well, let's say the reason why they like the bamboo stuff more than forest stuff is because it takes a lot longer to grow a weed, which is bamboo, than it does to grow a tree. Although I'm a little bit skeptical about the like whole of life emissions and environmental friendliness about relying entirely on bamboo. Though I would like to, I'm going to scroll up here because I'm in charge of this right now. I would like if you can pull up, if you can put that other screen back on.
Well,
the thing with the chart.
Yep.
I will say, if you notice, all of the ones that are so bamboo is supposed to be easier to use because it grows super fast. It's supposed to be cheaper, but all of the ones that are in the A category and B category are like the most expensive toilet papers on the market. You're not gonna get me to stop buying the Kirkland brand one. I'm sorry. That's what I've got. It's you would think that it would be cheaper, but it's not. Like, I'm not going to buy Trader Joe's toilet paper. Sorry. It's just crazy.
I don't have a clue what you're talking about at the moment, but I'm guessing from what you're saying. I'm guessing.
Yeah. So it's man, I guess you can find something to complain about anything, right?
You know, it just goes to show you they are after every aspect of your life. You know,
Yep.
They want to change every aspect of your life because the way you live is not acceptable to them. I mean, if you're not living in a mud hut and eating grass and bugs, you're not living the life of a climate crusader, you know? And that's how they think. It's just bizarre. And of course, yeah, if you ever see these folks out in any kind of an outing, such as, maybe one of their conferences, they're living high on the hog. It's all about, regulation for you, but not for me. It's the whole elitist viewpoint that they've had forever. And, most people today just don't want to have any part of it. They're smarter than that. And I would say this. Bamboo toilet paper? Well, I don't know if you've ever had bamboo slivers stuck into your fingers or not, but I sure as heck don't want any bamboo toilet paper.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? It's always the middle class and the well-off who are really into all of this nonsense. And as Linnea just pointed out, the ones that are the most sustainable, the ones that have the highest ratings are, guess what? The most expensive. Once again, everything that's good for the planet, everything that's the right thing to do is expensive. So the sort of the inference is, if you're a poor person, then you shouldn't, basically you just shouldn't almost exist. You certainly shouldn't be driving. You certainly shouldn't be able to heat your home or even use decent toilet paper. I mean, you're right. Is there not one aspect of our lives that they don't want to control or destroy? It doesn't seem like it, does it?
No, and that's the point. I mean, we call it the crazy climate news of the week, and there are usually at least a handful, if not two hands full, of these sorts of stories where there is no limiting principle into what they will try to force people to do, either through coercion, persuasion. Very rarely do they use persuasion. It's usually government coercion. Even to the comfort you have after doing a number two. I mean, I apologize, Linnea, for going to you first. Usually, most of the poop stuff goes to Anthony first, but I thought, he's been pretty greedy with that.
Well, let me say this too. So they're worried about boreal forests. They don't want old, nice forests being chopped down. And I agree with that. I don't want old, nice forests being chopped down either. But you know what's something that they are chopping down nice forests for? To plant other cheaper trees, faster growing trees like the loblolly pine, in order to make wood chips to send to Britain for them to burn for electricity. Yeah. So I don't take this stuff. I don't take their cries about deforestation. I really don't take very seriously, because I don't believe that they actually care all that much. I think, if they're told like, well, it's okay because we're going to chop down this forest to put wind turbines.
Yeah, then that's fine.
So yeah, I just don't take them seriously on these issues anymore.
Yep.
I will say in terms of overreach, this is the poop de grace of their effort.
Oh boy. All right. Well, here.
This is supposed to be a nice family-friendly show.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Well, let's flush this.
Can we go into a new story now, please? As an English person, I'm finding it all a bit uncomfortable.
Yeah. We'll flush that topic and move on to the next one, which is another man humiliation. And Anthony, get ready. I always go to you first when we have to talk about Michael Mann. But our friend Steve Malloy, who's often on this program with us. So let me just back it up a little bit. So the Associated Press wrote a story earlier this week, about Trump repealing Obama's endangerment finding for carbon dioxide, for greenhouse gases. And our friend and frequent guest, Steve Malloy, tweeted at the reporter for the Associated Press and asked him why he used Michael Mann as a source in his story, considering, quote, he has just been sanctioned by a Washington, D.C. court for presenting false information in court and litigating in bad faith on the essential issue in his case, unquote. And that, if you frequent viewers will remember, that's the case where Michael Michael Mann sued Mark Stein and National Review for defamation, but since the case has been adjudicated, the judge has been keeping himself very busy sanctioning Mann for presenting false information to that very jury. Well, anyway, after being called out, the Associated Press removed Mann and his comments from the story, just wiped it clean. It's actually pretty shocking, because the AP grants, they get grants. We've mentioned this on the show before as well. The Associated Press gets grants from, lefty daddy warbucks out there, print nothing but climate alarmist stories. But apparently now even the Associated Press has standards because they scrubbed Michael Mann from the story. Anthony, this might be the worst possible punishment for one of the worst people in the climate debate, because Michael Mann has an enormous ego, and this had to get him pretty steamed.
Yeah, I've often said that his ego is so large that he cannot fit through some doors. This guy has, that we have this phrase called Trump derangement syndrome. Well, Mike Mann has climate derangement syndrome. Seriously, he does. He believes that the world is going to hell in a handbasket, and he is the savior of the planet. And everybody should listen to him because he's the savior. And it's just bizarre, the kind of things that he will do and say just to get his point across. And so what's now happening is he's got a sharp reality check, and I'm sure he's just having a conniption fit over this. I'm sure the email, I would have loved to have seen those emails in the background that transpired after that got pulled. He's probably madder than a hornet. And this is going to set a precedent. Now, I want to point out something. If you go to Grok, which is Twitter's AI, and ask, is Michael Mann a liar? It comes back and says yes. So when the LLMs of the world are starting to recognize that he's a liar and putting out, a response that says that really says something.
Yeah, his hockey stick is still used. The graph is still used in schools to show children that that temperatures have gone up and that it's all man-made and all of that. Where where it's been proved completely false. That's correct, isn't it?
That's right.
Yeah, my daughter's still learning that in school.
Way back when. Yeah. If you take this data, any data, anything, and feed it into his algorithms, it comes up with a hockey stick.
Right. Okay. He and obviously he was very mean to my very good friend Mark Stein, who gave me a show to talk purely about climate stuff called Perry's Perspective on GB News for a time, and I was very, very, very sad about what happened to Mark with regards to this, and also with regards to his show on GB News.
Yep.
I'm running Grok right now, and it's taking a while to think about the answer. I just want to see how fast it comes up with it. It is very interesting. I like it now that they show like all the places that they're searching and stuff, and like Grok's, I guess, like processing. But we'll see what it comes up with. We'll see.
Yeah, the only way Michael Mann's hockey stick should be taught in school, it should be taught to give an example of dishonest science and fraudulent presentation, because you can't. I mean, Anthony, maybe you can expand on this, but you can't start with one data set, collect it in a certain way, skip to another one, different data set, take it in a different way, and then go back to the other data set the other way around. I mean, that is one of the big flaws in the hockey stick that he never loves to talk about, but it's the way it was put together was guaranteed, as you said, guaranteed the result.
Oh, well, you'll absolutely love this. So my daughter today in her drama class had to do a rap about how hydroelectricity produces cleaner and cheaper energy than traditional oil and gas. I mean, No, it doesn't. It maybe in very specific locations around the world with very specific, geography, but certainly not in the United Kingdom. But I mean, getting in a bunch of 15-year-olds to do a rap about renewables, oh, God, you just think, oh no, really? Is it really that bad? I mean, it was quite a good rap actually, but yeah, I mean, what's going on?
Yeah. So what do we got there, Linnea? How's it looking?
I don't use my grok. My grok does not agree with Anthony's grok.
Well,
However,
if
it's
you
fair.
didn't give it an exact prompt, where
Oh.
you say Michael E. Mann and climate scientist, it might not, because there's another Michael Mann who has nothing to do
It
with
knows
climate.
which one. It knows which one. But mine gives a different, but they train differently based off of how you treat, like how you talk to them and what subjects you run through them and stuff. And I've almost never used grok, so
Oh, right.
Yeah,
Okay.
Linnea's
probably
busy.
makes a
So
difference.
it's possible that it's been scrubbed already, but I saw this clearly yesterday in a Twitter post, and it was quite definitive.
Well, Linnea's busy training a different AI to behave properly. We've talked
Yeah.
about that on the In the Tag show. So
Yeah, I've been beating ChatGPT into submission. not so much on the types of answers it gives, because I don't trust any. Like if I'm not going to ask an LLM to give me a truthful answer about like climate science or something. It's just not geared towards something like that. But I have been beating it into submission with regards to its personality and the way that it talks to me, because I really hate the sycophant version that got released where it like tells you you're right all the time. I hate it. I hate it. So I abuse ChatGPT.
yeah, the real world tells me I'm right all the time. So I don't need that for my ChatGPT for sure.
But isn't that alarming, just on a sort of looking at the whole issue of AI in a metaverse, is for want of a better word, that you basically, it means that in a way that people are getting the answers they want. So there are different truths. If it behaves differently based on how you talk to it and things that you look for and your attitudes and things, doesn't it become a little bit like buying a newspaper because it has a certain political persuasion rather than a different one? I don't know. I don't use it because I hate it so much.
Yeah, it's a tool. It has to be thought of as a tool and not as a oracle.
Yeah, but kids do see it as an oracle. That's the problem, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The danger is how humans are being trained to use AI, not the other way around.
We're gonna train grok to consistently call Michael Mann a liar.
Just remember this: mantastic claims require mantastic evidence.
All right. Well, before we move on to the big news and the big fantastic news, really it was an historic day on Thursday when Donald Trump basically got rid of the endangerment finding. Before we go to the Lois, I just wanted to you had shared something with me on WhatsApp this week. Tony Blair, of all people, Tony Blair has said, hey, we need to start ramping up getting oil and gas out of the North Sea again. I never thought I would hear somebody like Tony Blair ever say something like that.
Well, yeah. So a very sensible story appeared today. I think it was in the Times. I sent you a link. I sent you a copy of the article. So the Tony Blair Institute has said highly sensible things that us guys have been saying forever, basically, about that basically if you're not producing your own oil and gas, then you're going to be importing it, producing more carbon emissions, if you believe in that kind of thing being an issue. Saying that the Ed Miliband and the current Labour government need to end the ban on North Sea oil and gas licenses, new ones, because at the moment there's a ban on issuing any new license for exploration in the North Sea. Trump said that he feels there's 500 years worth there. Who knows? But there's certainly enough to keep our economy going in terms of the revenue from that for decades. And the Tony Blair Institute said that. I mean, unsurprisingly, somebody who's the head of climate science at a university in the UK said, this is madness, renewables are cheaper and all of that. But, you know, in the immortal words of a lady that testified in the Perfumo affair scandal in the 60s called Mandy Rice Davis, she said, well, he would say that, wouldn't he? You know, when somebody's got a benefit, when someone benefits from the climate nonsense, of course they're going to want to keep the climate nonsense going. But somebody and an institute that is as important and respected as saying we need our own energy, we mustn't be running our economy or putting crashing our economy on the basis of you know, moral issues. We need to be thinking about the whole picture and supporting our people. Most expensive energy in the Western world, if not the entire world. It's ridiculous now. It's impossible now to run any kind of industry because the energy prices are so high. So yeah, I mean, I saw this as a very, very positive sign. And the story actually said Tony Blair Institute agrees with Donald Trump. So drill, baby, drill. Hopefully, you know, that's the policy of the Reform Party anyway. So, and they're ahead in the polls in the UK at the moment. So fingers crossed, eh?
Yeah.
Mm.
Climate sensibility is taking hold worldwide.
Yep.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, I really thought that's a great sign. I mean, because I wouldn't have dreamed that was possible, that the Tony Blair Institute of all things wouldn't just stay neutral or stay quiet, but actively advocate for more oil and gas.
They're pushing for it.
Yeah, that's amazing.
But you know, because we talk all the time that the Heartland Institute in the UK and Europe, but in the UK in particular, has been pushing very, very, very hard for this. And I mean, the other interesting thing is they said if we're going to get our emissions down, that we need our carbon emissions down, then we're going to have to electrify everything. And this is brilliant. The cheapest way for us to provide our own electricity is to build more gas-fired power stations. Because then we're not importing gas with a higher carbon footprint from abroad. But they're saying this like it's brand new stuff. How long have we been saying this stuff? You know? But anyway, it seems they're listening, so that's good.
That is very good.
Mm.
They're not engineers, they're evocative. That's their whole thinking.
Yep.
Mm.
Yep. All right. Well, we're going to get to our main topic today, that the endangerment finding is dead. Forgive me for a moment. I'm going to try to set this up so that we have the largest possible screen. Actually, what we'll do, we'll go back to this. All right. I'll put this video up on screen. I prepared something a little special for us to celebrate and to have a good laugh at the death of the endangerment finding. So I'm going to hit that video right now.
McCoy. Dead, Jim. It's strange. Red modeling all over his face.
Shock putting him back together seems to have been too much for him.
He's dead, Jim. It's finished. He's dead. He's dead, Jim. Where are the The man is dead. He's dead, Jim. Just like the other one. Stabbed over and over again.
Oh, Bill Shatner, thank you so much
Outstanding.
for that. Yeah, I had some fun.
Are you a
Anthony
Star
Watts-
Trek fan by any chance?
A little bit.
I know.
We didn't have time to all buy Star Trek shirts to wear on the air today, but yeah, when I saw the endangerment finding was dead, I thought, you know, he's dead, Jim. It kind of was after. But let's get into the story here. By the way, Al Gore calls the end of the endangerment finding for greenhouse gases, quote, an all-out assault on climate policy in the U.S. If only that were true. They could have done more, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. Linnea, maybe you can bring up the slide that has the actual
Sure.
rule from the Environmental Protection Agency, which was announced yesterday, and I think put online this morning. And this is the final rule for greenhouse gas endangerment finding. In this action, the U.S. EPA is rescinding the administrator's 2009 findings of contribution and endangerment and repealing all greenhouse gas emission standards for light duty, medium duty, and heavy duty vehicles and engines to effectuate the best reading of the Clean Air Act. The EPA determines that the Clean Air Act, Section 202A1, does not authorize the agency to prescribe emission standards in response to global climate change concerns for multiple reasons, including the best reading of the statutory terms air pollution, cause, contribute, and reasonably be anticipated to endanger. That about does it. The statutory interpretation is corroborated by application of the major questions doctrine. The EPA further determines that greenhouse gas emission standards for new motor vehicles and engines do not impact in any material way the public health and welfare concerns identified in the administrator's prior findings in 2009. On these multiple and independent bases, the EPA concludes that it lacks statutory authority to regulate greenhouse gas emissions in response to global climate change concerns under the Clean Air Act, and it is not finalizing the additional basis for repeal set out in the proposed rule. And before we start to break this down a little bit, I wanted to show some video here. This is Donald Trump and EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin.
This is a big one. If you're into environment, this is about as big as it gets, they tell me.
Today, the single largest act of deregulation in the history of the United States, over $1.3 trillion. The elimination of the endangerment finding is signed, sealed, and delivered.
The single largest deregulatory action in American history. That's a big statement in American history. And I think we can add the words by far. Under the process just completed by the EPA, we are officially terminating the so-called endangerment finding, a disastrous Obama-era policy that severely damaged the American auto industry and massively drove up prices for American consumers. Prices went up incredibly for a worse product. This action will eliminate over $1.3 trillion of regulatory costs and help bring car prices tumbling down dramatically. You're going to get a better car. You're going to get a car that starts easier, a car that works better for a lot less money. We canceled the EPA's absurd, just totally absurd tailpipe emission standards, which was a disaster for automobile manufacturing, and revoked Biden's emissions waiver that would have allowed California to regulate automobiles for the entire nation. And they're crazy out in California. They have nothing but trouble out there, as you know. That's why people are leaving in record numbers. I also ended Joe Biden's extreme CAFE emission standards, saving the average American consumer much more than $1,000 when they buy a new car. But now we're talking about close to $3,000. Sure.
What do you tell Americans who are concerned that the $1.3 trillion in savings does come at a cost to public health and the environment based on science?
I tell them don't worry about it because it has nothing to do with public health. This was all a scam, a giant scam. This was a ripoff of the country by Obama and Biden. And let's say Obama started it and got it rolling. And a terrible ripoff.
Yep.
Oh my God, I am so gel, as they say in Essex. Well, I am so gel. You are so lucky. You really are. Wow.
Yeah. Well, Anthony, this is a big deal, obviously. And let's talk about why it's such a big deal. And then we can get deeper into, as a group here, what it doesn't do and what more needs to be done. But, you know, Lee Zeldin called the endangerment finding, it's now past tense, the holy grail of the climate change religion. And this repeal is something that our community of climate realists have been asking for since way back in the first Trump administration. It seemed like it was never going to happen, and here it is.
Yep. Well, let me just be the first to say with this opportunity, it's dead, Jim. Anyway, but is it really dead? Is it going to be a zombie like some of these other things we've seen?
Mhm.
It's possible. I mean, the left is going berserk right now. If you look at some of their postings on X and other places, they are going after this as if you killed their dog. They are after fixing this. They have to, because we're saving the planet and we're saving you. You know, if we don't get this back, the planet is doomed. I saw an article today in the Guardian, you know, the universally always alarmed, reliable Guardian, that said that we're closer to a hothouse Earth than ever before, you know? Gosh. But of course, it's based on models. It has nothing to do with reality, just like, you know, the endangerment finding. So what's likely to happen is they're going to throw all kinds of stuff at this. They're going to throw all kinds of lawsuits and see what sticks to the wall, you know? And they're going to do everything they can to derail this. And the bottom line is I think it'll end up in the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court will probably look at the way that it was originally put together and what the limits of power that the EPA has were back then, and say, well, you know what? They couldn't do it. It was wrongly done. It circumvented due process. It circumvented science. You may remember, Jim, a fellow by the name of Alan Carlin, who actually attended one of our ICCC conferences way back when. He was at the EPA, and he was one of the few people that held up his hand and said, wait a minute, when the endangerment finding was being pushed. And he said that the science was being circumvented, the due process was circumvented. What did he get for his trouble? He got fired.
Right.
Well, we don't want to be, I'll say this. We should be celebrating right now.
Yeah.
We should not be like counter signaling the achievement here at this point. You know, you can say, this is awesome, let's go on to the next step, like I did in the video that I put out, kind of summarizing what's happened here. But I would not be like taking to social media to say, you know, yeah, this is a worthless move in the long run because they can just bring it right back once they get in. It's true though. And it's not just likely or possible, Anthony. I would say it's guaranteed that if the next administration that comes in is a Democrat one and we don't get the right next moves in place, then it will be brought back immediately. It'll be like the Biden administration coming in and just undoing everything instantly in the first 24 hours of him, you know, being in office with the auto pen situation. This week, oh, you do not have to play that. Thank you.
No. I'm playing. There's no sound. There's no sound. I just
there
wanted
is
to let
sound.
people
Oh, no,
know.
there is sound.
Oops.
There definitely is sound.
Sorry, I thought it was on
But
mute. My
may
bad.
I just say how well you look? You look amazing. Your hair, you look like a princess.
Well, not where I froze it. I'm sorry. There we go. That's better.
Can I just make one point? And it's a very, very general point, and it actually it's not disagreeing with anybody, but it's just a bit of advice that my late grandfather, my grandparents brought me up, used to say to me. And he used to say, Lois, you must remember to plateau. When you achieve something and it's good, enjoy it. Plateau, then go on to the next thing. Don't start thinking, oh, you know, it could go back or what's next. So all I will say is what I'm low plateau. And that's what he used to say to me. And I think we need to do that with this, because this is a huge thing. And I think maybe you guys have got used to hearing great stuff coming from your leader, but we haven't had any of our leaders saying great stuff for so long that as I say, we've got massive jealousy going on here. But that's all I wanted to say. It is huge. It is massive. And yes, they could try and unpick it, and they probably will. But you're right. Make sure the next steps make it more difficult for them to be able to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Let me. So I was thinking about this again this morning. I've been thinking about it a lot, actually, because it's such great news, and I'm trying to enjoy the moment and remember where we are and how unlikely this seemed not so long ago. Even when Trump was first in office, Steve Malloy, who again is on this show a lot, he's on the board of the Heartland Institute. He was on Trump's EPA transition team. They had a list of things that they thought needed to be done to end the climate scam and madness in federal policy, and they got like maybe 3 things that were important on the list. And now the entire list is all checked off, and there's things on that list that they never thought of that have been checked off. And the endangerment finding was like number 1 with a bullet, and it just didn't get any traction. And now here we are, after an interregnum with Joe Biden, a second Trump administration, and it's on. Fast forward, baby. I love it. It's great. We should enjoy this. But the one, now I'm just going to contradict myself, but like the little bit of disappointment, like, so the endangerment finding also, so this is just really for automobiles, for carbon, for carbon dioxide emissions out of automobiles. One of the reasons why the energy economy in the United States is not as efficient and cheap and market-based as it is because of the regulation of carbon dioxide out of power plants. And Linnea, you talked about this in your video. I just followed Linnea Lucan on X, and you can watch the video for yourself. But there are 2 important Supreme Court cases related to this news today. One is Massachusetts versus EPA, which was the decision, stupid decision. I believe one of those squishy swing justices, was it Kennedy or Breyer, wrote the decision, basically opening the door for the endangerment finding in 2009. And then there was the other case of, EPA versus West Virginia, that was supposed to actually shut down the endangerment finding, but that was never really enforced. So maybe Linnea, you can start to talk, and Anthony can also jump in, but there are a few more hurdles that we need to get over here in order to put this unscientific endangerment finding in the rearview mirror very far.
Well, I'll let Anthony hit it first, because
Okay.
you can go watch my video, but yeah.
All right. Well, I would say that we're at a point that's very similar to the movie The Princess Bride. Okay. We're at the point where it's mostly dead, but not truly dead, right? And so we're all waiting for the moment when it's truly dead, and that comes in the future after all of these lawsuits and screaming and wailing, get done. We're in that phase now. We're mostly dead, but not truly dead.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. And like Jim already pointed out, I'm not sure how much I can add to what you said, Jim, but it's going to take a couple of court cases to get overturned. It's going to take, if we can overturn that stuff, what's going to happen is it'll make it so that it takes like a real act of Congress, real passed legislation from, the House and the Senate, and then signed by the president in order to get more of these regulations on the books again. We need to be in that position because it will be very, very difficult for them to enforce the kind of super unpopular, like sweeping, economic policies, basically, are what these greenhouse gas emissions standards are. It's crazy that they didn't have to pass anything in Congress in order to get to a point where the federal government can shut down almost all of the major power plants in the country. That's something that definitely needs to go through legislation, if at all, which it wouldn't if it were put to legislation, even during Democrat-run administrations, I believe. Wouldn't have made it through. But they basically just gave the EPA this like sweeping power to do whatever they want, essentially, which is completely inappropriate. It's you hear the left crying all the time about how like Trump is making the executive branch into like a fascist dictatorship, but in reality, it's the left that's been forever running roughshod over the idea of our 3 branches of government. They've been using the executive and all of its agencies as like weapons against the populace for decades and decades. So it's the height of hypocrisy to cry now. And another thing that I would say is one of my favorite thing that's come out of this is now you're starting to see climate alarmists like Zeke Hausfelder and some other guys like that take to social media to say, look, this kind of thing can't be done at the stroke of a pen. There needs to be debate on the science before you can make these kind of decisions.
Gosh, why didn't you say that years ago?
And it's like, I just don't believe you because all of this stuff was put in place and they said, there's no debate here. There's no debate to be had.
Yeah, the science is settled.
The debate is over.
It's settled before it even started. We don't have to have any kind of conversation about this. We're just going to go with it. Shut up, go away. And now that they're not getting what they want, they're like, well, shouldn't we talk about this? Shouldn't we have a reasonable debate about the science and about the data?
Suddenly they want to have a conversation.
Yeah, they're like, there's a reasonable debate to be had, is what Zeke said recently. And I'm like, no, that sailed. There's no debate anymore. We are going to crush this climate alarmist nonsense. And maybe we'll toss you like a little treat. Maybe you can be involved in the Superfund site cleanups in the future. And you can do your environmental activism there. But
the lack of self-awareness is shocking, isn't it?
Yeah. Yep. Well, I mean, people forget that because it was 18 years ago when Barack Obama came into office, he peopled his entire climate and EPA with radical environmental leftists from well-funded, by the way, radical leftist environmental groups. He did not.
They always are.
They always are. He did not put people in charge who actually know about the environment and our scientists. He put in radical to implement a radical agenda. The declaration by the Environmental Protection Agency in 2009 to grab for itself by the stroke of a pen enormous power over the United States economy and that ripples out all over the globe was unprecedented in scope at the time. And what's kind of hinting back to what I said earlier when we started this discussion, this is not something that, frankly, a lot of us in the climate realism movement thought was possible, because there is something called political momentum and there's something called stasis, and that once ground is gained, it's such as this, it tends to stay there. It tends to be in the possession of those who took it forever, or forever as far as most people alive are concerned. And that did not happen in this case. And so I was thinking this morning, people on our side of this argument are like, well, this is great, but it's just they're just going to flip it back. They're just going to reinstate it when the Democrat comes into office and gets the White House again. And I was thinking, well, first of all, not so fast. I don't think a Democrat has a really good chance to win in 2028.
No, I don't actually.
So a President Vance who may get 2 terms, that would be a long time that this policy now, the correct policy, the scientifically and frankly morally and politically and legally correct policy has been in place. Then that momentum will be on our side, on the realist side, and it will be a lot harder to reverse it. And that points to the poll that we showed talking with you, Lois, in the beginning. Polls that show that the European people are not that concerned about climate change anymore. Polls consistently in the United States show that, when you talk about why people are voting for a certain candidate, environmental issues come at the bottom of the list almost every time, and has for many years. There is not going to be the popular and political momentum to, again, allow an EPA power grab like the endangerment finding again. That's why I think this really matters.
No, I agree with you, and it's interesting because Lenora, it was you that went to Davos, wasn't it, and had a look round. Yeah, and you were saying at our alternative Davos that we did, that for the Heartland, but in Zurich, that when you went and had a look round, you couldn't believe the lackluster amount of climate alarmist type pro net zero stands and activists. That it was completely different to previous Davos events, didn't you? So that shows you, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, it was dominated by AI stuff.
Yeah, and they need energy.
They pushed the climate guys off into this little corner pretty much.
Good.
One of the things that struck me yesterday about the news conference announcement that President Trump and Zeldin put on. One of the speakers right after Zeldin and Trump spoke said, no other president could do this or would do this. And he's right. And Trump's a smart man. He thinks many, many steps ahead. And so what he has done has put into place a hold on. What he put into place was a gutting of the EPA. He got rid of all those activists, and he did that on the first term. And then, of course, some of them clawed their way back. And in the second term, he took a scorched earth policy to the EPA and got rid of a lot of those people. And so it's going to be harder for that bureaucratic momentum to come back, especially, as you say, if we get President Vance for 2 terms. But again, I think it'll stick. There'll be a lot of screaming, a lot of lawsuits and all that stuff. But in the long run, I think it'll stick because Trump has essentially neutered the bureaucratic machine that sustained this. And one other thought, we were talking about Star Trek earlier. I think, just for fun, we should make up some red T-shirts to send to all of our friends out there on the other side of the aisle that say, it's dead, Jim, get over it.
Or it's nearly dead, Jim, based on the conversation that we had just now. But
yeah,
I don't think for the engineering department. As well as the ground crew. Let's not send them cool shirts.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah, I mean, just to tie a little bow on it. I mean, ABC News had a meltdown about this. I don't have any clips for it, and it's fine. But ABC News, Mary Kay Bruce, she said, in the blink of an eye, President Trump is wiping out the government science that was the foundation to keep the air pure and the skies clean. And then David Muir himself, the anchor, said that President Trump has repealed U.S. power to regulate climate in this country. And it's dangerous, not just for the environment, but for your health. Guys, carbon dioxide is not a pollutant. And that was the reason why it doesn't qualify under the Clean Air Act, because carbon dioxide is not a pollutant. Just because it's emitted from a power plant or the end of a tailpipe does not make it something harmful to human health and welfare. This was always bullshit and a scam trying to use the thinnest patina of legal justification to implement sweeping controls over the entire economy. It's a Marxist dream, and that dream is over.
Yeah, good. Excellent.
Yeah, and I just want to say again to our audience here, we have a lot of people, including often myself, who are slightly, maybe a little bit addicted to finding or ignoring all silver linings. And even if something is really not a bad situation, finding a way to turn it into a bad situation, or looking ahead at what could go wrong before
we need to enjoy it.
What's gone right. So guys, here's the position that you need to embrace and internalize here. Yes, there's more to do, but this is a step in the right direction, and we need to be extremely happy about that. And also, I cannot emphasize this enough, because this is something the left has been very good at and that we have been very, very bad at. And that is understanding the power of media narrative. Right now, the entire left-wing media is running, we are losing doom and gloom stuff against the team. That is very good for us. We should not be trying to correct them. No, you haven't lost yet. It's okay. You
yes, you're right. Don't interrupt your enemy when they're making a mistake. You
exactly. You guys might win the midterms. You can still win. Don't do that. Don't give them whatever you do. Turn to your representatives and say you need to support Trump because he's doing something great and we're winning.
Yeah, be positive.
Like, what's our next step? We need to overturn I'm forgetting what it's called. We need to there are Massachusetts versus EPA. We need to overturn Massachusetts EPA. That's our next big step. It's as big as Chevron. It's very, very important that we get that done. That is the next thing. It's probably already in motion. and we need to be positive towards the future, not already talking about how we're going to lose. Like, please, you guys, for goodness sake, let's not like anticipate and be excited about failing. Let's go. We're
I
not
don't think
tired of
anybody
winning.
is.
We
We're
can't
just
be
pointing
tired
out
of winning.
reality, you know?
Yeah.
The left is coming after this with both barrels
Yep.
loaded for bear.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the point, the West Virginia versus EPA decision from the Supreme Court, I thought, and this seems, again, common sense is finally starting to catch up with political and policy reality. You know, West Virginia versus EPA said that, look, Congress did not give the EPA the power to regulate carbon dioxide emissions of any kind. And that just seemed to sit there, and it didn't have any effect on EPA policy, because the endangerment finding was just sitting there, and it took action to overturn it. It was just going to stay there unless somebody did something about it. So this is a huge, huge step. The Supreme Court obviously is going to can find another reason. I mean, the Massachusetts EPA is about carbon dioxide being a pollutant, and West Virginia versus EPA is about only Congress has the power to include carbon dioxide as a regulated gas. You put those things together, plus the repeal of the endangerment finding, the climate alarmists have nowhere left to go. They have nothing to stand on anymore. This is
a win. Let's enjoy the win.
A win. Enjoy it. It's a win.
Yeah.
It's an absolute home run. And so, look, if Congress wants to, and Lee Zeldin said this in the press conference, if it's Congress's desire to classify carbon dioxide as a regulated gas through the EPA, they're more than they're perfectly in their power to pass a bill that says so. They have never done so. They probably never will do so. So tough noogies. We win, you lose. Science is on the rise, and dogma is on the decline.
Good.
Yes. Well, speaking of things that should be on the rise, that should be gold and other precious metal prices. And that's why we are very happy to talk about the sponsor of this here Climate Realism show. And
that was good, Jim. That was good.
Metal. If you listen to a lot of conservative shows like I do, you hear tons of pitches for buying gold and silver and other precious metals. And there are a ton of companies out there, but I want to tell you why you should trust our sponsor, Advisor Metals, and that's the man who runs the company, a good man named Ira Brashatsky. He is the managing member of Advisor Metals, and he does not get into those high-pressure tactics or deceptive marketing ploys like many of the companies in big gold. He also doesn't deal in so-called rare coins, which are not really rare and you're not interested in. When you buy gold and other precious metals from Advisor Metals, you are dealing in quality bullion, and that is so much better when the time comes, if you may desire to do so, to liquidate that very valuable physical asset. And when you buy from Advisor Metals, you will have your investment sent discreetly to your very home. Another reminder is that Ira Brashatsky is advertising on this program because he, like us, well, maybe not Lois, are America First patriots. And Ira does not donate to Democrats. He refuses to work with the proxies of the Chinese Communist Party. And he, like us, abhor the machinations and schemes of the World Economic Forum and the United Nations. That is why we're so proud that he is a sponsor. So if you want to diversify your investment portfolio, or if you want to back up your IRA with real physical bullion of precious metals, go to climaterealismshow.com/metals. You can leave your information there, and Ira will make the process very easy for you. climaterealismshow.com/metals, and be sure to tell them who sent you, because that helps us while you're helping yourself. Thank you for your attention to this matter. I know, I think, Anthony, you have to go pretty soon, I think at the bottom of the hour, so we'll try to get through our Q&A, in which Linnea takes over. So, Linnea, take it away.
I can't believe Andy's not here, and I still get that inflicted on me.
You still
Our layouts are a little bit messed up today, and it's our fault. But we're gonna get through this.
We are. There we go.
Okay, guys. Good segue, Jim. Good job.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Before
this
you
is
get
what-
into this, Linnea,
Yeah.
I have a comment from a viewer that we received by email that I want to bring up about something I
Okay.
said last week.
Sure.
there was a question last week that asked, why are we getting all these spikes in power, because of the cold snap in the Southeast? And I had pointed out that I thought it was because of baseboard heaters. And I had a couple of emails from people saying, well, why are you saying that? Well, we had one from Mike J0178 who sent this message. Says, please tell Anthony Watts that the baseboard heating is very efficient because there is no chimney where heat can escape the house. Forcing air loses heat through the ducting, and the furnace sends some heat up the chimney, but electricity does cost more than natural gas. Well, I agree that, yeah, we're not losing any heat from the chimney. But as a previous owner of a house that had baseboard heaters, I can tell you that, in fact, the difference, having two houses, had an office and a house at the same time, the office would warm up very quickly after we, turned things down for the weekend. The baseboard heater home took forever to warm. Well, not forever, but literally it felt like that. And here's the reason. And I discussed this with physicist Tom Sheehan, who also asked me the question. And I wrote to him, electric baseboard heaters are often considered inefficient, not because they fail to convert electricity into heat. They're actually 100% efficient at doing that, but because they are expensive to operate and ineffective at distributing heat throughout a room. They function like a giant toaster, using electric resistance to generate heat, which is a high-cost method compared to other heating systems. They have no forced air through them, relying only on convection, and that's the key point here. So there's very little mass transfer exchange of energy. Therefore, you have to run them longer than conventional forced air heating systems, costing more to heat the space. And physicist Tom Sheehan agreed with me and said that, okay, I see what you mean. A baseboard heater filament will heat a few nearby molecules to very high temperatures, and molecular collision will quickly bring the vicinity of the baseboard heater to a warmer temperature. But warm air all over the room is slow to react, and it's achieved better by a convective system, such as the forced air system. So when a basement furnace burning gas or oil heats the air, being swept up or swept in from cold air ducts and send it forth through warm air ducts, the heat in various rooms is distributed more evenly. So I hope that settles the topic of baseboard heaters.
Thank you, Anthony. And actually, I have another heating question for you from the audience here. This is from D80501, who says, would you address the endless warmer air holds more moisture mantra? It's technically true, but you must have a source of such moisture. They act as if climate change affects any given storm on Earth.
Well, yes, it's true. Warmer air does hold more moisture. However, warmer air also is more prone to convective activity. And we see this every day at the intertropical convergence zone around the equator, which acts as a giant thermostat for the planet. It's very warm and very moist down there, and we get all these thunderstorms that build up during the day. They transport heat and moisture from near the surface up to the higher altitudes through convection. And as a result, we end up with all these clouds, that are around the equator after these thunderstorms get going, when the equator's in the sunlight, that section of the equator in the sunlight. And what happens is that those clouds reflect more solar energy back into space. So it acts as an automatic thermostat. And so we've seen the grand experiment, which happened in 2022 when the Hungatonga volcano erupted and threw all this water vapor into the stratosphere, unimaginable, huge amounts of water vapor. And what happened? Yeah, temperature went up globally. Of course, the climate alarmists don't want to admit to this because that just totally screws up their whole CO2 theory. But what's happened is we've seen a huge spike in temperatures over a couple of years, and now they're coming down. If you go look at Roy Spencer's UAH satellite data, you can see that we're now in a fast downslope, and that's because the water vapor is finally precipitating out.
And as a follow-up, Wheelman, a frequent viewer of ours, so glad to see you here, Wheelman, says, Anthony, are you describing the iris effect?
Yes, to a degree.
What is that? What is the iris effect?
Well, it basically, it says that the intertropical convergence zone acts like an iris that opens and closes for incoming solar radiation. So, when the iris is open, we get more sunlight coming in, hits the equator, but then it automatically regulates, creates these clouds, which then creates reflectivity, and the iris closes.
Awesome. Thank you very much. We love the science questions on this show. All right. Let's get one for Lois. Let me find one. I know we have some.
I'm glad you didn't ask me about with that particular last question.
Yeah, Lois, what's the iris?
I really am.
All right. So Stephen Lindsay asks, to Lois Perry, has Great Britain news changed after so many loved presenters leaving or fired?
I would say that GB News is still the most non-woke and most open news channel of all. But of course, the nature of the channel has changed a little bit, because if you bring in new presenters and get rid of old ones, then things are going to be different. I think GB News has, well, it was threatened, has been threatened by Ofcom. So they've had to evolve the way that they present the information. They don't want to get shut down. I mean, GB News has been told by Ofcom that they are in their sights, that they want them gone, basically. But then that's a compliment to GB News, because why would a lefty organisation like Ofcom want to get rid of GB News if it wasn't seen as a threat? And actually, GB News is the #1 rolling news channel in the United Kingdom now. It's actually bigger than Sky, BBC News, what used to be called BBC News 24. Now it's just rolling BBC News. Yeah, it's bigger than all of them. So my answer is yes, but it's still it's still the go-to news channel for me.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Alrighty, let's see. Chris Nesbitt says, what about any and all regulations stemming from that finding? Will it be a long, slow process getting them removed? I would say yes, just because nothing in government happens quickly, right? It's not like next year's models of cars are all gonna have no more auto start thing or auto stop start feature. It'll probably take like a generation, because they're already being produced and stuff. So just the same way other downstream things are going to take some time.
I'm looking forward to future models of automobiles having a coal chute.
Take rolling coal to a whole different level. Yeah. All right. Nuts and Bolts asks, and I think this might be a little bit tongue-in-cheek, in the interest of having a fair and balanced discussion, do you have time to invite Barack Obama to join your panel? I would be fascinated to hear what he has to say. Yeah, I think it's trying to get away from hearing what he has to say, which is the trick, right?
Yeah, I mean, actually, he said he has a tweet. I don't have time to bring it up, but he said, he tweeted this out yesterday. Today, the Trump administration repealed the endangerment finding, the ruling that served as the basis for limits on tailpipe emissions and power plant rules. Without it, we'll be less safe, less healthy, and less able to fight climate change. Also, the fossil fuel industry can make even more money. I commented on X this morning. It's like, man, that's pretty low energy for Barack Obama.
I saw that tweet, but can I just make a general comment? Before we actually started the show, I was talking about the tone deafness of the politicians in the UK at the moment, and with regards to pushing an agenda that the public hates and wasn't in their manifesto. I was talking specifically about a ruling that's come in that children can choose their own pronouns and gender at schools without the parents' permission, and also the experiments that are being done on children at the moment with puberty blockers. But that could apply equally to what you just said, couldn't it, Jem? Obama pushing forward with this when nobody wants it, and the polling showed in Europe nobody wants it. The leading party in the polls in the UK is Reform UK, and they're saying they're going to abolish net zero. Trump is obviously very popular in the United States, and Obama is still. It's like change the record.
Absolutely. Alrighty. Will Schugert asks, does this mean that carbon dioxide is no longer classified as a pollutant?
Yes.
Yep. Alrighty. And David Maddox says, the people making the climate rules are usually lawyers. They have no knowledge of energy systems. How come nobody votes for technicians or engineers?
Well, you know, we have the Archbishop of Canterbury who goes off on political things. And then you have me that goes off on science. And so a lot of the time, you know, people don't get the science. And so when the engineers and the scientists start talking about things, people's eyes glaze over. You know, they don't get it because they don't understand the technology or the numbers or the process or whatever. And so it's very, very hard for an engineer to get elected into a position of a public office. The exceptions to the rule are when these engineers are heroes, such as what happened with a number of people that were astronauts, you know, who went through the Apollo program and so forth. A lot of them ended up being politicians because they were heroes and people were able to get past the whole eyes glazing over talking about the engineering side of things.
It's also to do the specific skill set as well, like the kind of skill set that you need to survive the Machiavellian trials and tribulations of politics are completely different skill sets to people that are able to analyze data, make things, design things, build things, understand the science. And you're right, sometimes you have that combination of both, but yeah, some quite often so you have to be, not always, but you have to be quite a slippery character to survive either on the Hill or in Westminster. So yeah.
Right.
Well, and to be fair too, I mean, it's not like scientists and technicians and engineers aren't also susceptible to the same kind of ideological blindness that lawyers are, right? I mean, we all are. So you don't, just as much as I don't want to be run by a bunch of left-wing lawyers, I also don't want to be run by a bunch of left-wing technocrats, right? Scientists can be, I mean, just look at some of the most famous scientists like on television and stuff right now. They're very smart in their particular field, but I wouldn't want them writing policy. So we have to be careful about kind of broad strokes like that. We want people to be informed on energy systems and stuff. And that's what like our I'm forgetting what the acronym is, but we do have a like a regulatory body for the like grid and stuff. I cannot believe it's just totally out of my brain what it's called. Maybe one of the commenters can write it in. And they tend to be staffed, even when there's a Democrat in charge, with some fairly reasonable people in terms of their job. However, it doesn't mean that a Democrat's going to take their advice, right? All right. Let's go. Wayne, thank you, Court. Wayne says, what can be done to keep the endangerment finding dead? Well, I think we kind of covered it at the beginning of the show, right? Getting certain there are a handful of Supreme Court rulings that need to be overturned, and I think that they will be, because there seems to be a will for it in the court currently. And we also need to overturn the current endangerment finding on power plants as well, to just kind of put a kibosh to the whole thing, right? There's definitely more steps. We need to make sure that they can't just push this through the regulatory agencies anymore, and that they have to go through Congress. That's the biggest part.
Exactly. I mean, you kind of forget that in 2000, I mean, because it was almost 20 years ago, that it was brazen that the EPA just decided to declare for itself out of thin air the power to regulate carbon dioxide as a pollutant.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until the only lawsuit to really challenge that was West Virginia versus EPA. And that took, 16 years to get to to become case law? I mean, it should have been challenged.
Wow.
Yep, absolutely. Okay. Let's see. Will Congress have to act to drive a stake through its heart? I don't think so. I think you can do this without Congress. You can get it was done without Congress. It can be done again. It can be gotten rid of without Congress. Okay. Ian McMillan, one of our other frequent viewers, says, so can we go back to high tension piston rings in cars now? Yeah, let's do it. Anthony would be the best person, I think, to ask that question.
Yeah, well, this is something that was put together, as part of the whole more efficiency, whatever. Yeah, we can go back to that. In fact, I suggest to everyone, go tear your engine apart right now and put in high tension piston rings.
Yeah,
Maybe be careful.
Well, what this really does, and they won't admit it, but the CEOs of all the automakers around the world, especially in the United States, have got to be breathing a sigh of relief. Because the only reason they were manufacturing these electric vehicles was because of the CAFE standards that were increasingly jacked up by the Biden administration, which made it impossible it would have made it eventually possible by 2030 to even manufacture an internal combustion engine vehicle. So it was a way to regulate cars that people like and could afford, regulating them completely out of the market. And they were expensive, and Ford and Chevy have taken billions of write-downs on these vehicles. And so now we don't have to make those pieces of crap that nobody wants anymore.
Yeah. Well, and I see kind of like far leftists complain a lot, especially on Reddit, about like the size of pickup trucks. And they make fun of them because they're like these gigantic pickup trucks. And really, a lot of them don't have the biggest engine in them either. And that's another thing that came downstream from the greenhouse gas endangerment. Like, it's forced them to meet these like weight limits for emissions that are completely absurd from CAFE standards. And so,
my friend,
if people want those little, if you want a Hilux, you have to get rid of all these crazy emissions regulations.
Yeah, my friend, the late Congressman Doug LaMalfa, shared motorheadedness with me. He liked hot rods. He was a Ford man. I'm a Chevy man. But we got along even with that difference between ourselves, right? But, he said the very same thing. People don't want to buy these cars. Let's not force them down their throats because it's just not working. And I'm sure he is smiling right now, looking at this and saying, I told you so. And he was right. And so here's to you, Doug.
Well, in the UK, we still have the ban apparently coming into force on all new all new petrol diesel vehicles. As I said, I've said it 100 times, but all of those policies, if Reform UK win, and actually because the Tories have been copying everything that Reform have been doing, they're now saying exactly the same thing, that that will be overturned. So if Labour lose, when they lose, because of the work that we have done, a lot of it to do with us, a huge amount actually, that will be reversed, the ban on ICE vehicles.
Absolutely. We have a question from a viewer on Facebook, Don Williams, who asks, are you folks actual climate scientists? And I would say for myself.
No, but we play one on TV.
for myself, I'm probably at least as much a climate scientist as Bill Nye is. So I've got that going for me. Maybe a little bit more even.
I will point out that even Michael Mann is not a climate scientist. His degree was in astronomy and math. And so,
Anthony, you're more a climate scientist than he is.
Yeah, maybe. But
because your background is meteorology.
You're a climate scientist is the universal, oh, well, you're not a climate scientist? Well, I'm just going to ignore what you have to say. They do that to our friend Chris Martz all the time on X. They say, well, you're not a climate scientist. What the heck do you have to say about it? And then he says, well, I'm a meteorologist. And then they go, oh, you're not a meteorologist. You're just some dumb guy, some kid. Well, and then he pulls up his meteorology degree, from Millersville University and points out to them, yes, I am, you doofuses. And then tend to shut up after that.
Yeah. I mean, just another shameless plug for the climate conference coming up April 8th and 9th in Washington, D.C. What you learn, and I've helped organize almost all of these that we've put together over the years, is that it's such a great opportunity to meet some really, really important and bright scientists. But we have scientists from all sorts of disciplines, atmospheric scientists, people who study space weather. You have biologists, and we also have a bunch of engineers. Engineers are a lot of fun, and if you're lucky, you might be hanging out at the hotel bar and listen in to an argument, a very friendly argument between scientists and engineers, which is always very enlightening. So we hope to see you there.
Oh, I can't wait. And no, I'm not a climate scientist, but my argument to that would be that my personal belief is that this has nothing to do with the planet and saving the planet anyway. It's a political Marxist agenda, and I'm a political activist. So, I'm well placed to help you guys fight it.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah, kind of what it turns out is that climate scientist means just anyone who has the right opinion according to the media about climate science. Because I've seen people cited in like Washington Post articles and stuff who are called climate scientists whose educational background is like they have like a Bachelor of Arts in some like political thing or something, so it really depends. Okay, let's see. I want to get another science question in here before Anthony has to leave really quick. Let me see if I can find one. Sorry for the quiet moment here, you guys.
No worries.
There's never normally any quiet moments when I'm around, so this is quite unusual.
There are rare things happening all over the place.
I don't have another specific weather question or anything for you, Anthony, but I'll hand this to you from Wheelman again, who says, if we electrify everything, exactly where does the electricity come from?
Well, that's the big question. That's a $64,000 question. The grid we don't have enough capacity in the grid to supply what the green dreams are for the future, like for electrification by 2035. There just wasn't either the capacity to generate or to deliver. And so that's the big question here. And now it's becoming kind of moot because electrification of vehicles is on the way out. And speaking of being on the way out, that's me. I have to drive to California. So please pray for me and bye-bye.
Yeah, my condolences.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Right. That was Anthony Watts, you guys. He is here every week, except for when he's not. All right. Well, gosh, we still have a whole lot of questions here. We have some good ones here for Lois.
Okay.
Including this one. Okay. LT Oracle of Truth, who is over on Rumble, asks, how can Europe turn their Titanic around with this climate hoax? They are dug in.
Well, no. All you need to do is to repeal the correct acts in Parliament and abolish all net zero policies. I mean, we have a government at the moment that is so committed to these subsidies, renewables, that as soon as you have a government that isn't and is not interested and is drilling for giving new licenses out in the North Sea, as one example. We're going to start fracking. The Reform Party is committed to fracking, as are the Tories now, because they copied them. So once you've got a government that wants to implement the correct policies and abolish the wrong ones, why not? Why couldn't it work? I don't see any reason why not. I really don't.
Awesome. Good optimism. And I think you're right too. I think you can turn it around. It's not too late. It's not too late for anybody. It's just, it takes the will. All right. Here's a question from Climate Bell, who says, why can't we educate people on the fraud of climate science? This will ensure it never comes back. People learn the fraud of Enron. Jim, do you want to take it?
Well, I mean, yeah, a shameless plug again. You can get educated on climate science by coming to the 16th International Conference on Climate Change put on by the Heartland Institute, April 8th and 9th, 2026 in Washington, D.C. Get your tickets at heartland.org. But seriously, I think, you know, I kind of joke sometimes. I mean, we've titled the show the Climate Realism Show, and in an ideal world, we have to rename this show to something else because the whole world comes around to a scientific-based understanding of the climate and some humility on humans' ability to influence it in any meaningful way. And, you know, that education is ongoing. There will always be the miseducated environmental zealots out there. So we will always have this show titled this and coming to you every single week to counter it. But, you know, again, you see in polling that the issue is just not not as important to people when they're really forced to rank what issues are really important to them. And the more people understand about the climate, the less they are worried about it. The climate alarmist agenda is being pushed because of two big reasons. One, the zealots are, well, there's a few reasons. They're very well funded. They are very, very loud. They have a lot of pull and influence in our culture, from Hollywood to to Europe and Great Britain and TV shows. I mean, the propaganda is relentless.
Yeah.
And the other side of that is that politicians who desire control and more power see it as the perfect avenue. It's the catch-all. It answers every challenge to more government control. Well, we have to do it because of the climate. People are going to die. ABC News just yesterday, after the repeal of the Endangerment Finding, this is going to make people sicker and all that stuff. It's nonsense. More CO2 does not make people ill, but they continue to push the propaganda because it is the perfect avenue for government control over your life. That's
Absolutely.
why they won't give it up.
And what I would say to that is, the answer is to just keep on keeping on. We're just going to keep on doing what we're doing, making it the breakthrough for me in the UK when I originally started doing this 4 years ago, actually more than that now, 4.5 years ago, was that when it got to a point where the news presenters or the TV presenters on the channels that I were going on started to say we should challenge the science, and then one or two of them said, I think it's a scam, and that was it. Then it was like, at the at the Emperor's New Clothes, the scales falling away from the eyes, and then it became acceptable for people to say, well, I'm not sure, or I don't know what the motives are, but there was an actual point where it broke slightly, and I think if you just keep on pushing, we will get there. And as Jim just said, the polling is showing people, when it comes to the crunch, this is not a big deal for them now. They just want a higher standard of living. I tell you what does decrease people's life expectancy and make people ill, having a very low standard of living because their energy costs are so high, and they're cold, or they're not eating good food because they can't afford to buy it, or they're not taking enough exercise because they're the things that will kill people, and that comes from expensive energy prices, which is because of net zero.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we're kind of running out of time here, you guys, but I do want to answer this question by someone I have not seen in the chat before. So welcome, Castlebrick.
Great name.
Yeah. So, and this is a question that has been asked by a couple different people. Most of them are kind of regulars for us. So sorry to our regulars. I'm going to try to prioritize some of the new people in our chat here. But this Castlebrick asks, with the endangerment finding statement, what about New York City's local law 97 requiring buildings to reach 40% decarbonization by 2030 and net zero by 2050? It went into law in 2024 and the appeal was upheld in 2025. So I would say it depends. I would have to see the actual local law, but I would say that because this is not endangerment finding with regards to power plants and stuff, and this is just on the tailpipe emissions, I would say that this probably doesn't touch that. And also, states are still going to be able to be crazy if they want. Like California is still going to be able to have their own special little thing, but the Trump administration got rid of the California waiver. So that means that other states don't have to be tied to them and their decisions anymore. So California can go off and deindustrialize and decarbonize or whatever all they want. And they can be a little like 1890s conspiracy, enjoying their horse-driven carriages and stuff, and their bullet trains that run on no electricity because it's out all the time, or the bullet trains that run on nothing because they haven't been built. Yeah, it's probably not going to touch something like this, but I think downstream, the more it becomes more and more obvious that these policies are doing a lot more harm than good, I think they'll start quietly dropping them. Like California, New York City, and New York in general probably are never going to come out and say, we messed up. This isn't working out for us very well. We're going to reel it back and we're going to focus on affordable, reliable energy. They're not going to do that. But they might go ahead and say, like, just quietly put edit their rules so that they can push them further and further into the future, like they have done before. So yeah, that's my guess anyway. Jim?
I think that's exactly right. I mean, as I was thinking about it while you were responding there, I was thinking about the rise of the so-called hard right and far right movements politically in Europe, and of course that characterization is complete bullshit. And I only say that to make the point that, there was a time only like 5 or 6 years ago where far right parties in countries like Hungary and Poland were becoming politically successful because they were reflective of the desires of their own people. And what we've seen over the last several years is, and now you see it in Germany, you see it now in the UK with Reform UK, you see this, I don't know, normalization isn't quite the term I want, but, political common sense has its own momentum as well, not just leftist totalitarianism. That's not the only thing that trends. Political common sense also has its own momentum. And I don't think it would have been possible for Reform UK to be where it is right now in its power and its influence and its popularity in the UK, were it not for other countries in Europe never even embracing those sorts of things. So, we like to talk about kind of like a permission culture. It's like, it took a while, like for COVID, it took a while for people to have the permission to say, I'm not putting that mask on anymore because that person didn't, and that person didn't, and that person didn't. So good things have momentum as well. And I think that's indicative here in radical climate policy, politics, and everything else.
I think I want a bit of global warming next week because I'm going to be knocking on doors in Gorton and Denton by-election in Manchester, which is always cold. And I'm going to be doing a lot of walking, a lot of banging on doors. But if Reform win this by-election, then and obviously I'm not a member of the party, but I'm up there at Heartland UK. If they win this by-election, Keir Starmer will probably have to resign because this particular constituency has never been anything apart from Labour. It's been Labour since the Labour Party was formed. So anyway, so I want you to be thinking of me next week when I'm in the freezing cold and the rain. It's always raining as well up there. So yeah, that'd be interesting.
Yeah, Jerry Palmer says, take a good umbrella, Lois.
Yeah, no, I definitely have an umbrella. Definitely.
John says you'll probably need a boat.
Yeah. I'll let you know. When I come on the second Friday of each month, which I've very kindly been invited on to do. I will update you next month on my antics, but I'll be tweeting about it as well on the Heartland UK and Europe Twitter and my own personal one.
Excellent. All right. Well, and I wanted to say, you guys, too, Thomas Adams in our chat here is making good points as well, saying that people should be going to school board meetings, speaking up during public comments portions, developing a relationship with superintendents, all this stuff. All of this stuff is completely true. And this counts for the climate issue, too. Like Jim said, there's a permission culture, and you can create it by just going and being the one person. You don't even have to take a hard stance. You don't have to go up there and say, this is communist propaganda, blah, blah, blah. No, you can go up there and say, look, maybe global warming is a problem, but also I think that probably the stuff that you guys are pushing is going too far. And here's why.
Yeah.
And you can give
Yeah.
reasons. And you can soften your approach and and just create the momentum of that permission culture, so that people can start saying, yeah, you know what, maybe it is kind of stupid to make all the school kids eat bugs. So so let's
Eat
we
the bugs.
but I will hand it back off to you, Jim, because that is all the time we have for questions.
Yeah, thank you very much. I mean, the soft pedal approach that works. That's somebody's cup of tea. It's not always mine, but good advice for sure, Linnea. And I want to thank everybody who was here with us today in the chat to join us for the Climate Realism Show, and a very, very fun one, because we got to report on some very good news. Lois Perry, Director of Heartland UK Europe, thank you so much for being with us this
Thank
week.
you.
We'll see you again next month as well. Thank you, Linnea Lukin. Thank you, Anthony Watts, who is now absent. But again, thank all of you, the viewers and listeners of this podcast, because without you, there is no show. I want to thank our streaming partners again: Junk Science, CFACT, CO2 Coalition, Climate Depot, What's Up With That, and Heartland UK Europe. Go to heartland.org today and get your tickets for the 16th International Conference on Climate Change. Seating is limited, and we want to see you there. And we will see you here again next Friday. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Joe. You're going to be the next president of the United States.